I'll go ahead and get started. So let me just begin by mentioning that I'm going to present some information. I'm going to give you some theory first and then some practical, and I by no means have all the answers. I'm just going to give you what I have found to work in my classroom, what I found not to work. And then I'd like to have some discussion so that we can all learn from each other on what works, what doesn't, whatever, some suggestions, thoughts. So I think there are more people in here that know me that don't, but I'm Debbie Tauschek. I'm the middle and high school math teacher at Faith Lutheran School in Plano. Since I thought there would be more people who didn't know me, my next slide is just a little bit more on who I am. I have a husband, 2 children, and a dog. My dog is very important, as you can see, or he thinks he's very important in my life. My educational background is here. This is the second career for me. So 2008, I got my bachelor in math at a public school in Wisconsin, along with the state teaching license. Then I was headmaster at Christ Lutheran Academy in Kenosha, Wisconsin for about 6 years, and then came to Faith, where now I teach middle and high school math. And then in December just this past December, I finished my Master's of Education from Concordia, Austin. So thank you. Which a lot of the theoretical that I want to talk about is from the research that I did on my final research project in December. Because my final research project was on the importance of timed tests in a classroom. And I think that relates to, well, that is truth, right? Going through the facts every day, facts, truth. That's how I made the connection with truth in mathematics. When I first saw the title, what she wanted me to talk about, truth in teaching mathematics, my first thought was the truth table in mathematics. Anyone that's ever taken any logic math courses may have seen this. You know, if P is true and Q is true, but not P then is false. Okay, that's not what I'm going to talk about today. Okay. I just wanted, that was just my little math humor, I guess. So I'll not be speaking on this truth in mathematics. I'm going to talk about teaching truth as facts to middle school students. My experience is middle school, so I know that it can be applied to younger grades, but I will just speak of what I know. Okay, and truth in the importance of the students mastering facts as they progress from class to class. So, why talk about truth in mathematics? Well, I mean, the glaring thing that comes out to me is because our culture is constantly trying to take away the truth and redefine everything that we know as true. As Pastor Hill this morning talked about the bull and the cow, you know, our culture is trying to redefine marriage, gender, I mean, everything. So let's keep truth in our math classes where we have the control. In my life, that's where I have the ultimate control. Just out of curiosity, when I Googled teaching truth in mathematics, what came up was an article from NCTM, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, from just this year, and it was entitled "Discover Truth in Mathematics." And the article went on to talk about how we should not just give the facts, how the students need to be led to discover everything on their own. And I just got so mad. In my research too, when reading different scholarly articles and things, my husband would sit in the other room and I'd just start screaming, I can't believe this. I mean, I can't, people really say this? It's really bizarre. Okay, so we need to learn the truths that have been given to us in the past, things that we've learned on, in order to move forward. You know, don't deny that to our children. Okay, so I'm here to show you one example of how keeping truth in the math classroom can be administered and taught. Some of my knowledge has come from research and some from experience. I don't have all the answers, as I mentioned earlier, but I absolutely love searching for the best way to teach. So, first, a little bit, or I guess next, a little bit about my research. Then, as I said before already, the second part will be how I have accomplished that in a middle school classroom. My research, my thesis was consistent use of timed tests will increase automaticity and confidence at every level and grade. I was just amazed to find, I took for granted that, well, of course you would do timed tests daily. How else are you going to get that automatic? I was just amazed at some of the anti-timed tests articles or people there were. One quote I found from, let's see, this woman, Jo Bowler, in 2016 from National Numeracy, I believe. She wrote, "Mathematics facts are important, but the memorization of math facts through times table repetition, practice, and timed testing is unnecessary and damaging." Damaging.
Does she declare any more information on how that goes on?
It was a longer article, and that was just her thought.
Yeah.
That was her thought. Right. Yes. No, well, some of the articles that the people who would give their proof are, students who would say, or students who would get, the heart rate would go up and they'd start to fail math because they were being timed and just this pressure on them. And so I found one article written by a woman that I really appreciated. She mentioned time tests, yes, can be stressful, but don't do them until the students know what they're doing. I mean, you don't just randomly, okay, today we're going to do we're going to learn, I'm going to introduce you to multiplication, and then tomorrow you're going to be tested 100 of them and you have to do them, and you don't do it that way. I mean, you show them how to do it, and then after they're comfortable with it, then you bring in the timer. And also bringing in the timer, the students, I'm constantly reassuring my students that they are being tested on their own ability, not everyone else's. And I make it, at first there's the boys in my class who, I finished before you, or whatever, I'm better than you, that competition constantly. And I from the beginning, I tried to squelch that, not a word. As soon as you're done, move on. And I'm getting into my practical part of it, so let me come back a little bit. My hypotheses. I had 3 hypotheses in my article. Students in varying levels in elementary and middle school make fewer mistakes with other math problems when they can recall math facts quickly. Now, these are really just what I thought were just common sense, but it needed to be said. Students who practice math timed tests every day may have a greater confidence in math skills than their counterparts. And students who practice math timed tests every day may have greater automaticity in math computation than their counterparts. Yeah, okay, you practice, you get better. In anything, right. The resources I use in my classroom. I've always used sex and math, so I can't speak to any other curriculum. Even at my former school, we use sex and math also.
Just out of curiosity, did they encourage their teachers to not have to worry about the script? The script tells you what their goal is, but you, as the teacher, are going to know more. That's what we use to say.
Yes.
To give you an idea, but you go with the kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because that's perfect with that.
Yep. Yes.
Because they say, who's got a script? Like, yeah, but you don't use it.
No, you don't. you don't have to. I only use a script for the ITBS testing.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Okay. I also have assignment sheets. So I'm really big on structure and keeping everything the same so that the students know what to expect. They know what is expected of them. So Saxon Math has theirs, and I created my own. I have a stack of my assignment sheets. They're typically white. This is a case of someone put in brown paper, and this is what printed out. This is the one I happen to bring. I just have a stack of them in the back of the room. Students just take one as they need it. This way they're able to do the work in the box and put the answer on the line. It keeps it real neat and clean, hypothetically. And then in the boxes, there are also grid lines. So if they have to make, straight edges or something, they should follow these. So I have that. And when I run out of these in the back of the classroom, the students get really mad. You need to go print. I can't do it. You haven't really do it on lined paper. It's okay for this moment, but they've grown to really like those. I use whiteboards and dry erase markers. Each student, I have enough of these in the room. I keep them in the room, and then I just hand them out. As they're coming into the room, they take a whiteboard. They have their own markers, dry erase markers, and then they bring in their own rags to erase. I ask them to bring in a clean old sock or something that they already have. And then on the back is when we get to graphing, we use this for graphing. Now I only use this during instruction time while I'll show them a little bit of what the lesson is, and then I give them time. Okay, now you try it. And this way I can see, then they'll hold up their answer. And most of the time, that's okay. Sometimes I have to do it row by row. I get wait, too much. I can't look at everyone. So I put your boards down. Okay, now show me your answer one at a time. I have always used these, and I've been very happy with the outcome. But you have to know that they're going to draw on these while they're waiting or while they're paying attention. So I give some leeway. If they're drawing and it's not distracting to anyone else, I ignore it. But when they start drawing something and then showing it across the room, okay, then I take their board and they have to do the work on white paper for the rest of that lesson. Rulers, or Saxon just says straight edges, just so that you have that straight line for graphing or for drawing a number line, connecting 2 points. Compass, protractor, scissors, what any, I guess, good math class should have, math room. And then additional aids as needed for reinforcement or enrichment also. I have, this last class, I had 14 students, and I'm speaking of 7th grade math because that's the book I that's the textbook I brought. Course 2 is what I used for 7th grade math, or would be, the older version would be 7.6, 76. I had, I guess just like any math class, I had 4 students in particular who I just don't think should have been moved up in math, but they were, and so they just were at the lower level. I had a couple students who really didn't need a teacher. They could just read the book, do it, and they were fine. And then I had the average students. So for reinforcement, for those 4 students who really struggled, I just adjusted everything I did, gave them, Saxon Math has reteaching, they call it, reteaching worksheets. So I gave them that, and I gave them half the assignment that everyone else was doing, just because it took them, they just really struggled. The average students, I asked them to stay after school for help with me. And then for reinforcement, enrichment, for enrichment, 2 things I've done. 2 years ago, I had some really high-level students in my class, and in fact, they were even from a year younger. They got math. They could just do it. And so I had them at times, they would make posters for the lesson, or they put together a little puppet show for reducing fractions. just did other things, instructional aids for the other students. And they had a lot of fun with it. And then I also have a timer. The timer that I use is, does it go away? No. It's just a free online, I'm going to show you, but it's really large. And I usually have it on the data projector, but I don't know why the internet doesn't, when I go on the internet, it doesn't show up here. And so when that happens in my classroom, when my data projector isn't working, I just put it on my computer, and it's so large, I can just put it in the front of the room and everyone can see it. And they time themselves. I just walk around when they're doing the timed test. When they're finished, they write down how long it took them, and then they're instructed to move on to the mental math for that lesson. And it's all done independently. I don't want them to tell anyone, as I mentioned before, I don't want them to tell anyone how long it took them. Just quietly move on. Another thing or kind of information I came across about timed tests and how it could be damaging to the self-esteem, whatever, is a suggestion was made not to post who's at what level. I've never done that, but I just thought it should be said. Some people will, like for reading books, a student might go put a star next to their name if they're read so much literature or whatever. So don't do that with math timed tests. When a person, if a person does exceptionally well, great. Tell them privately, or what I'll do is they hand in their timed tests, or I collect them. When the last person is done, I'll collect them, and if I see that, and I record it, on the recording sheet that they give you, I just keep a list. They know that this does not affect their grades. So I don't ever see the stress level go up like I've heard people talk about. I just don't see that in my room, and I don't know if I'm just ignorant or what, but I really try to make it as in, just do this. This is just, I just want to see you get better. That's all this is about, is you getting better. I want to see your time increase, or I want to see your proficiency increase. I tell them this does not affect your grade by any means. I just keep track. And I said occasionally it gives me something to talk about with your parents at a parent-teacher conference. But other than that, I really try. Probably every other day I'm saying, not a stress, just show me what you know. And I haven't come across that real stressful situations. Now, before I was teaching, before I went to school, when my son was in first or second grade, he'd come home just in tears about his timed tests, and I thought they were horrible. Why are you doing this to my child? But now that I'm on the other end, oh my goodness, they're really important. And so maybe also mentioning it to the parents in a newsletter or something, just as a side note, hey, we do these, but try to get your parent. It'd be nice if I would have known at that time that it's not meant to be a stressful situation, that they're only competing with themselves. That kind of information might help at home also. Okay. My typical math class. This would be a 50-minute, at a minimum of 50 minutes. I don't have that at Faith. I only have 40 minutes. So at my former school, we were in a self-contained classroom, and so I could spend more time if I needed to, and it was real helpful. One of my students, former students from that school, he's now going to be a senior in high school, he still jokes with me about our 3-hour math classes, which never happened, but in his mind, apparently it just went on and on and on. Anyway, this is, I think, set up nicely for about a 50 minutes to an hour lesson. So I have to adjust. Let me explain first, I guess, what my goal is here, what I'd like to do. Start with the power up every day, which in SACS, that's the mental math. I brought power up I. It goes with the lesson that I was going to talk about today, which is lesson 41. So power up I the directions, find the number that completes each proportion. So the first one is 3/4 equals a over 12. So they should be able to look at that, and they could do cross multiplication to find it, or just find out, you know, what do you multiply 4 by to get 12, multiply that by the numerator to get the value of a. So they will have been doing this several times before they get to this point where they're being timed on it. Yes?
That's not their time to test though.
Yeah,
Oh, it is?
It is.
it is. It
The
is.
whole thing?
Just
Okay.
just those.
Okay, and how much time do you give them for that?
5 minutes. I give them 5 minutes, but it depends on the class and what this is and what their needs are on that day. So 5 minutes is not a hard and fast rule, but that's kind of my goal. If they all finish before 5 minutes, fantastic, we move on. Okay, then from here they go into their mental math, which, so I have it set up for lesson 41. The mental math they'll complete right below the power up. They have those spaces there. And the mental math is intended to also go relatively quickly for lesson 41. So lesson 41, this would be like October-ish, November, maybe not, right around there, October, I think. So number sense, 5 times, that's my next slide. I forgot I printed it. Okay, so there's the mental math. They're expected to use what they already know. They would have learned exponents already in advance, so they could do this relatively quickly. 25 minus 16, 9. Then they go on to the problem solving. This is still on their own. They're working at their own pace. I'm still kind of waiting for that last person to finish their timed test. So those who have finished and are done with the mental math, then they go on to the problem solving. This is the problem solving for lesson 41. Use simpler but similar problems to find the quotient of 1 divided by 50 trillion, I think that is. So it takes them some time. When I have a full hour, we can get through all of this, and we can get through the problem solving, and even maybe have a minute or two to discuss the problem solving if there are questions on it. After the problem solving, then we go through and check all of our answers. I tell them, take out a red pen, and I wait till everyone has a red pen. And then I just ask them to make the correction on the paper so that they actually write it down. And after it's all graded, I go around, collect them all, and then they take out their whiteboard, and I begin on the lesson. As I'm teaching the lesson, I'm constantly trying to show them that this is not a difficult concept, whatever the concept is, because with Saxon math, I don't think anything is really new. It's just a little bit further, a little bit further. So lesson 41 is, let's see, using formulas. It's using formulas and distributive property. So the way they introduce using formulas is, well, you already have learned that area equals length times width. You already know how to find area of a rectangle. So we kind of look at that and then say, okay, now we call this a formula. So it's not new, we're just putting words, kind of math terminology to what you already know. So in that way, I try not to scare them. One day, though, in my effort to explain or try to bring their stress level down, that this is not new, don't get scared, you've done this all the time, we're just going to look at it a little bit differently now. One student wrote me a note, and later, after he put it on my desk, and later I read it, and it was something like, oh sure, don't stress, she says. Oh sure, it's easy, she says. And it made me laugh. So apparently I say that a lot in the room. Okay, so we go through, then we'll go through and check. I think I have a slide on this. Yep. Okay, my direct instruction. No, I don't. Okay. So during the direct instruction, or, so this is using formulas, and then I'll ask them a question, and they'll write their answer on their whiteboard. And we do it that way. That way I also know that everyone is with me. Everyone's paying attention. We're often waiting. There's that one student in the front who, okay, we're just waiting on him. Hello. Or the one in the back. Oh, did you ask something? Oh, yeah. Those are my days. Okay. During this time also, I mentioned a little bit about the enrichment and how there's those students who just pick it up quickly and really don't even seem to need a teacher, could read the book and do fine. I've never have verbalized this in the classroom, but I know that they're sitting, I have them in the back of the room, and I know that they're working on the assignment and only half paying attention to me, and I just let it go. Because I know that they can and they do well. So I guess that's one of the ways that I guess for enrichment, maybe not quite enrichment, but how the upper grade students can excel and not get too bored in my class. So I just let them work. Okay, after the lesson, I give them time to work on the assignment. Again, this is in an ideal 50-minute class, 50 to 60-minute class. I give them time to work on the assignment. I walk around the room. I did miss one classroom management point here. After the instruction, before they begin on the assignment, I collect the boards because they start to have way too much fun with the boards and stop doing the math. So you do have to get the boards away from them before they'll start on the assignment, most of them. That's been my experience. Okay, so I always do problems numbers 1 through 30 in Saxon math. Always is maybe that's the wrong term. I'd like to always, there we go. I'd like to always assign numbers 1 through 30. I think it's really important that they get that practice. Now, we only have 40 minutes. So I never cut out that power up, that mental math. That is, I think, the crucial, and that was kind of what I hope you take from this is how important that daily mental math is. So that's never dropped. What might get dropped is I might spend 2 days on a lesson, or I might shorten the assignment a little bit. Yeah, I think those are kind of the two ways that I shorten my time. I might not be able to take as many questions as I'd like to, so I tell them, I'm always there after school. There's 3 days a week that I'm after school for questions and help. So I just encourage them and tell them, I'll email your parents if you want to stay. I'll try to make arrangements so that we can have this discussion, just the two of us, instead of taking up class time. Yes.
How many lessons do you a week you try to do?
I try to do 1 lesson a day.
Okay.
Yeah. I rarely finish the book. I get pretty close, but I rarely do.
Do you let students go ahead if they have the capability?
Yep, I do. But I tell them, they sure, work ahead. I'm probably not going to take the time to answer their questions until we get to that lesson. So if they get stuck on something, they just have to wait. But yeah. Oh, and then there is an assessment every 5 lessons. So we spend a day on the assessment. About halfway or maybe about a third of the way into the year, I started to give them the other tests. So Saxon Math has test A, or the cumulative assessment, A and B. And they're really the same, the numbers are different. Yeah. So I started to give them the B for review. And so I just see there's no, how can you ever fail this class? I'm giving you everything you need. But there are only a couple who do it, who will do the review. So then I started, okay, I'll take questions. For those of you who did the review, I'll answer your questions before the test if you'd like. If you didn't do the review, no, I'm done. I'm not going to put forth the time if you're not going to put forth the time. Now for those 4 lower students that I had, I assigned the review. That was part of their assignment. Actually, that was their assignment. And I just gave them a real short, whatever the lesson was the day before the test, I'd give them a shortened, much shorter version and assign the review. Because even they wouldn't do it if they didn't have to. I think that's it for the assessments. I do not do a midterm or a final, just for the sake of time. I guess that's it. Okay, so tell me what you guys use. How do you do it? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes?
How quickly do you turn back your graded homework? And do corrections?
Okay, good questions. Okay, so ideally, I think it's really important that they get the homework back the next day. It really needs to be done right away. My life happens, and so sometimes it's a few days, but I really try. It's my goal to get it back right away. And corrections, okay. Whew. It depends on my class. This year, at my former school, I would assign all 30 problems, and I only graded 15. And I told them that. I was completely upfront with it. I said, I just don't have time to grade all of yours thoroughly. I want to do a good job. I want to see what you're doing. So in order for me to do that, I have to shorten it. But on the other hand, it's really important that you're practicing it. So I would assign all 30, grade 15. They never knew which 15 I was going to grade. I just would choose random 15. That was also my way of trying to get the assignment back daily. At Faith, we have less time, as I mentioned. So I started the year out with 30 problems, and it just got to be, I could see it was getting to be too much. In their effort to complete it, it was not done well. So I backed off a little bit, and actually most of the time I kept the 30, but I changed my grading. I graded 15, but I counted them as 2 points. So then it would be out of 30 instead of just 15 because their grades were really dropping. But their test grades were staying consistent, but their homework, so I knew I needed to do something to adjust that homework grade, especially for there were so many of them who were down on themselves for their math grades, and it really bothered me. So I just assigned 2 points then for the ones that I graded, and 1 point if they just did the work. If they left a blank space, I took off 2 points for that. So that's how I graded it. Okay, so corrections. For this class that I just had, I had a real problem with them completing their assignments. So I did not let them make corrections very often because they just wouldn't do the work. Because they'd say, I can just do it when I get it back. So I didn't do it so much this year. I did at the end of the year I did. I let them make corrections and I'd give them half credit for it. And last year I did the same thing. I did it for most of the year last year. That was just a whole different group of students and I could do that. Tests, the 4 lower students that I had, they had to redo their tests. They just couldn't do it in the classroom. So I gave it to them and I gave them full credit for redoing their test. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't even give half credit. I have in the past, but this class I did not. You just get to know your students, I guess. And you get to know what they need and how you can push them. Okay? Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
In your opinion, what is the highest level of math that ideally every human being should attain.
Wow.
Meaning, does everyone need calculus, trigonometry, geometry? What should their level of mental math be?
Okay.
That sort of thing.
Okay, so you asking that question as I'm processing how to answer that, I'm thinking, well, you first have to ask why are we doing this, which may be what you're asking. Why are we teaching math? And so I see math, and this is what I tell my students all the time when they get frustrated. You know, I'm never going to need to know how to distribute numbers in the gas station or whatever, the grocery store. I tell them math is not about the numbers and the little detail that you're learning. Math it's your brain. It is exercising your brain. When people go to the gym to work out, you know, they lift weights to strengthen their muscles. They don't lift weights so that they can go to the grocery store and lift weights. You don't do that in life. You do it to strengthen that muscle. And so that's why you do math. So how far should you go? I guess it depends on how strong do you want your brain to be. So, okay, good. Yes.
What about, you know, like me, I let the students, first thing in the morning when we start, they grade each other's papers, which alleviates some of my time.
Sure.
And then they can correct their lessons.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps with anything as far as helping with that.
Sure. Sure.
Now, I know that I have an hour, so that does help.
Nice. Good. So you spend some time right away at the beginning
Because
grading.
I'm a stickler on terms, so they have a term quiz also.
Okay.
And then while part of the group's doing their term, because I have usually 3 levels in there,
Okay.
because I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay.
So that's what I'll do is we'll go grade 1 level and then we're working on the quiz and so forth.
Okay. So you have to make those kind of adjustments because you have the different levels. So you have an hour, but yet, okay, so I have 40 minutes, but I only have the one class. I guess you do what you have to. Yep.
A trick that I picked up from my sister who taught high school when I did middle school, the homework had to be done in pencil, and when they came in the next day, all that could be out was a red pen, and they marked their own, so that they could ask questions if they didn't understand it. That was
Sure. Yes. I haven't. I guess I'd have to train my, kind of shift my thought in how spending that 40 minutes because it's just so crucial. Yeah, instead of question time, you could do that. But I don't always have time for questions. Yeah.
pick out the problems you think are crucial and do those.
Yeah. Okay. Just as a review or as a, let's do these from the assignment that are most. Yep.
I went to a Saxon math training,
Oh.
and the instructor told us that you put your regular pencil away, you take out your red pen, you read the answers, they check their own.
Okay.
And that stimulates a lot of questions and review on that last paper. And also, there are times when they'll say, well, no, the answer is 130, not 140.
Yes.
And I said, well, let's think about how you got 130.
Yep.
And they'll go, I forgot to carry.
Yeah.
They find their own mistake, and I think there's value in that for the students, to figure out what they did wrong, so that the next time they don't do it. So I do that with the kids, I have them check their own.
Okay.
And timing is tricky,
Yes.
and I have,
Yes.
I have 2 grade levels in my classroom,
Okay.
so.
I have to see how that can work in my room. Yes.
You know, I like to have them check their own. I'm in a setting where we have K through, well, this year it'll be 7th grade, and we'll have 9 math groups in 1 hour. So I actually have a teacher coming in, she takes the older one, she's going to be doing 5, I'll be doing 4. So in that kind of setting, you don't have a whole lot of time to go through the questions in the mental math. You go through the lesson, you have them go to work, they have to do a lot on their own.
Yes,
It's really
yeah.
helpful for them too. If they have questions, we have time, but they can come later and ask us for questions, and then we have to set up that other time outside. But, you know, to correct, what we always did was we ended up correcting it. With the older ones, we would, in the beginning, kind of give them the chance to correct. But what we found is because they were working on their own, they wouldn't take that time to go back and correct. And so we kind of just slowly took that away. You know what, we're putting the pressure back on you. It's your responsibility
Right.
to, you know, to check this out the first time. Now, if it was a student that we knew was struggling, needed extra practice, we were there, you know, go back and correct this.
Right.
You know, we'll help you with what you need. But for those older ones that are just like, I'm not doing this, you know, I don't care about the grade type thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's it. This is your responsibility. You take your time, you do it right the first time. And we didn't always assign all 30. We would do, okay, we have an odd lesson, you do the odd numbers. You always had to do mental math, you always had to do, you know, the problem solving, but, you know, odd lesson, you do odd numbers, even lesson, you do even numbers.
Someone mentioned that yesterday too.
That works well.
I wonder if you guys are from the same school.
I don't know, maybe.
Yes.
I should also add that I have to spot check, because there are some kids who cheat. And
Yeah.
put C for correct instead of an X for wrong. Or there will be a kid that will think, well, I really didn't do my math last night, but, you know, she won't care, I'll just put a C on these and I get them all correct, and
Yes.
catch that.
Yes. I find that when I'm recording the scores for the mental math.
Right.
Yeah, I get real frustrated too when I see, or I see that person in the front who's not paying attention, and I'm trying so hard to get their attention. I'm, you know, asking them, or, you know, kind of watching as I'm grading it, hey, you missed that one. And so what I've gone to doing is I'll highlight one that they missed, and then I'll send it back to them. Pay attention. I'll write really big on there. But yeah, I have one girl too this past year who just has such, I don't know, it must be low self-esteem or something. Just thinks, just has it in her head she can't do this. And she's forever handing in her timed tests with just about all of them marked wrong when they're right. And I just think, I just feel really, I don't know, feel bad for her. Breaks my heart when I see that. Anyone else? We have a couple minutes.
Does anyone do
Yes.
math labs? Like I'll take a Friday, especially if we're doing well, and we'll have a math lab on problems they're having problems with.
Yeah.
And we might do math history, like mathematicians, and then we'll do math problems that deal with that.
Oh,
I do that on Fridays.
and do you do Saxon math?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you get through the text through the year?
It depends. Last year I had a very high achieving class.
Okay.
So we did.
Okay.
This year I'm expecting the same, because I have one student in 8th grade that's going to do geometry Saxon,
Okay.
because he's already in that form.
All right.
But
Wow.
It depends on the years.
Yep.
You know, some students have more time and I have to take more time, but I really like using my Fridays for that, for labs. And we just, sometimes we play games. I don't know if you've ever been to a 24 game. It's a set of cards that give you 4 numbers, and you use your addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, you try to come up with the number 24. And you time it and see who can get it, and just something that gives them fun to do with their math. But I really like trying to get into history too. Who came up with this?
Sure.
'Cause
Right.
sometimes they go, who's the stupid guy that thought of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll talk about it.
That's a neat idea. We have the math competition in our area. I don't even know what group it is, math competition. It's not Math Counts. I don't even know. Maybe it's just the Metroplex thing that they put together, the DFW Dallas area. But that's usually held in, I don't know, like the start of February or the start of March. So once a week for the month previous, we'll get together and do things like that. Kind of like a math club thing. They seem to enjoy that. What were you going to ask or say something?
So classes have changed a little bit since I've graduated from faith. But one thing, especially the high school students, that I appreciated when we had Christian Belkey teaching was he took us through parts of Euclid's Elements and went through some of the literature that was attached to the theorems. Are you able to incorporate any of that into like the high school teaching?
It is my goal. Yep. My first year I was going to do that because I had spoken with Christian Belkey about it and I wanted to do that. I hope you don't know who my students were that year. I didn't think I could. I started at a higher level geometry with them, and it wasn't going well. So somehow my teaching, I wasn't reaching them. And then I haven't gone back to it. And so this is my 3rd year, so I skipped 2 years. I have to sit back down, and maybe I should just call Christian Belke back up and ask, have this conversation with me again, because it gets me fired up. I want to do this, but teaching directly from Euclid's Elements instead of a geometry textbook. Yeah.
One thing I was going to say,
Yeah.
with our corrections,
Yeah.
it really helps the students, because I require them.
Okay.
You have to. But it helps them to identify their, what we call picky petty errors. 2 times 3 is not 5.
Right.
And those that are concept errors. And they look forward to finding a concept error. They're like, you know, trying to see, was that just a picky petty error, or do I really, I'm not really sure what I did wrong here. And they find out that 90% of their errors are just they were rushing too much, or didn't transfer to the answer sheet correctly. And when they find one that's a concept, okay, you have to go one-on-one with me. I found one, I wasn't sure what I did wrong. And they love that. So there's that joy of
I could see naming it, like, what'd you call it?
picky petty error.
Picky petty. I'd have to find something else that doesn't flow from me. Picky petty errors. I could see them going through and trying to and having them evaluate. Okay, now you tell me how many of those were the
That or silly errors
Yes.
or something.
yeah
Because then they just correct them.
yeah
Then we bring those ones up. Don't look at those. Those were fine.
yeah. Huh, I could do something with that. Pastor Paul, I talked with him also on the first day, and he mentioned he had them write the kind of the truth statement or the thesis, the point of the lesson for the day. He has them write it in a separate notebook and keep track every day. So that's another option.
Yeah, if you forget to carry, that's, you know you have to carry.
Yep.
And you see those.
Yeah.
There's not 2 different answers in that, there's one.
Right. Despite what our culture seems to be saying. Okay. That's all I have. So thank you.